Hello, everybody. Welcome to a massive day of KFC SuperCoach. Massive day in sport, in footy, massive day in Melbourne, definitely, and anywhere that people play KFC SuperCoach because the first lockout of the season is only a few hours away. And if you're like me, you're up into the early hours of this morning trying to make last minute changes to your team. Obviously, a massive injury bombshell yesterday that we all had to deal with. So we will talk through, I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions about what to do with Elliot Yeo, and Dan Batten is here to help me. And I think we're going to have a very special guest from South Australia as well, but we're just waiting him to dial in from the lair. But Dan, how are you feeling with just a few hours to go till the Tigers and the Blues meet at the MCG?
Feels like every single decision that I was absolutely sure on isn't right. I just it's a bit like that, isn't it? The final day, but you just got to back yourself. I think the main thing for me, I think, will be whether I start Nat Five or not. I had it in my first team and then took him out for Goulden, but may have to change my mind. Just looking at that tantalising Fremantle draw, that's seriously drawing me in. So, but yeah, a few crazy hours to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So we might, hopefully, the Phantom will be with us very shortly, and we'll definitely get into all the Elliot Yeo chat there. Nat Five is definitely someone who's on my radar. We've published our sort of revised teams, yourself, me, Phantom, and Tim. They're all online, so people can go and check out the different options there. I noticed both of those guys have gone for sort of try to go up from Yo, whereas I'm probably more going the other way. So
Same
there's
here.
there's a few different ways you can do it. I mean, he's almost one of the worst players that could have got injured given where he sat in our structures. But if we just sort of set him aside for the moment, you're the rookie man. How are our rookie stocks looking? There's also a yarn online with the confirmed round one debutants. We're up to sort of 7 or 8 of them, which is good. Hopefully, we'll get a few more. But you're thinking we should be pretty confident with how the rookies are looking at this stage?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, even compared to the defense from last year to this year. Last year we had Sam De Koning, Paddy McCart, and we weren't sure how they were going to score. They ended up going a lot better than expected, but it was only and Josh Gibkiss. They were our three defensive rookies. Now you can reel off
Yeah.
probably 5 or 6 rookies in defense. We're probably going to be playing a guy like a Campbell Chesser or even Charlie Constable in our midfields. That's how good the defense is looking. And many are running with 3 defensive rookies on field. I think that's definitely viable, along with a guy like Liam Jones as well. And then you got Ashcroft, Cam McKenzie, Will Phillips, Oscar Baker in the forward line. You have a few options like Asava Radagalia, some more of that sort of expensive price. Alwyn Davies come along, and he's been announced as a debutant as well. So maybe the forward rookies are probably not as strong as those that may be in the midfield and defense, but I think overall you can probably afford to field a couple of rookies at least in each line. So and that's better than what can be said for previous years.
Are we going back a bit more to guns and rookies? I mean, with Yo out, he was obviously a very popular pick in the mid-price range. But yeah, if people are upgrading him to a premium or downgrading him to a rookie, and then they've got money to turn a mid-pricer into a gun somewhere else, it's sort of we're going back to sort of pre-COVID days in KFC Supercoach. It feels like a little bit.
That's right, but I mean, it still could be proved to be a winner. We look at the sub rule this year. I think that's one thing that hasn't been talked about too much. That if these rookies, have a poor half, they could be subbed out. So, a guy like Lockie Cowan, I'd expect him to play the full game. But who knows if a guy like Darcy Wilmot, for instance, he's probably in the bottom 3. The Lions might even be that 22nd player for the Lions in that strong lineup. If he, has 5 touches in the first 3 quarters and they want to bring in another tall or whoever their substitute is, he could be subbed out. So I think it's definitely a concern, and why with these rookies, guys like a Toby McLean or even a guy like, I know I've mentioned him on every single podcast, and you
Yeah,
think
give
I'm
him
his
another plug.
manager, Ben King. I think that's a vote in confidence for these sort of guys that are going to play every week, even a guy like Oscar Allen, if you want to pay up as well in the forward line.
Yeah, well, I did see a stat this morning on Ben King that he's kicked 4 goals in his last 2 games against the Swans, who Gold Coast play in round 1. So that caught me a little bit by surprise, I have to admit. Yeah, McLean is a really tricky one, and Asava Radagalia is someone who I think we all got really excited about a couple of weeks ago. Then we sort of went cold on him a bit after that practice match. He didn't score very well, even though he seemed to play okay. But he has snuck back into my team. I probably don't want to be putting him on the field just because that scoring I don't think is going to be amazing. Hopefully, he has a couple of good games, but they're going to be hard to predict. So comfortable, more comfortable having him on the bench. But I think that having a bit of ruck insurance just makes me feel a lot better. So in the end, at the moment, I'm starting him over a Toby McLean just because McLean's role in the practice match wasn't great. He didn't get any real
Yeah.
midfield time. Um, Stuck down in the forward line there, hardly touched it in the first half. So not quite sure what Bevo has in mind for him. And Asava, at least I think for the moment, his role is pretty secure at Geelong with Jack Henry injured. So, and just having that little peace of mind that if a Darcy or a Marshall, my starting rucks, miss a week, which let's face it, is probably going to happen. I mean, last year we made trades in the ruck; they just kept going down. So, I've heard people say, well, if a ruck gets injured, you just trade him. But at the same time, if Marshall just is laid out for 1 week, I don't necessarily want to have to trade him out. Feel much happier if I could just bench him for one game and at least have some cover there with Radagalier. So that's kind of where I sit at the moment. But we're joined by the Phantom. If he's got the internet connection up, he's saying just give us a second. So maybe we'll wait 2 seconds for him to get things
to
going.
load it up in the lair. He's on a dial up over there in Adelaide. Yeah, they're just sort of.
Well, he's back into the league. Might have to plug everything back in because we were very lucky to have the Phantom over in Victoria for a couple of days this week. Met him in the flesh, which was a great experience, a huge honour. If people saw any of the coverage of the Supercoach launch a couple of nights ago at the Bells Hotel in South Melbourne, and the Phantom was there, so that was a rare privilege, and it was great to have him on board. But he's bunkered back down in the lair for round one. Who have we got here? Geordie's. Oh, and hang on, the Phantom. Are you with us there? Can you hear me, Bucks?
I'm here. Sorry, just actually out the lair. Recorded a last-minute episode of the lair with the hipster, with the Eradicator. Some interesting stories, some interesting talk that'll be out later this afternoon. But I'm here. I'm excited. What have I missed?
Well, what's the hipster doing with Elliot Yeo? Or did he have him in the first place?
He did. He's gone down to Will Day. Now he's spoken about Will Day a fair bit. We've talked about him a lot over here. So Eradicator's doing the same thing. So 2 Will Days and also 4 names. If you're familiar with the podcast, Simeon Thomas Wilson called me earlier this morning, said he's jumping on Will Day as well. So
interesting.
From across the border. But Hayden Young for me, if you haven't seen my updated team, I've got him back in, made some cash elsewhere, which has given me a few little problems, which you can see the full detail online now. But Hayden Young in for me. What have you guys done? What's the consensus over there and with the punters?
I don't know if there's a consensus. I mean, it's really blown up a lot of KFC SuperCoach teams, which is sort of, the last thing we needed. But at the same time, I think we're going to see a lot of different teams, which is kind of exciting because there's lots of different ways you can go about it. Yeah. I mean, probably the simplest solution, if you don't want to blow up your whole team structure, is just to find another defender at a similar price and swap him in there for Yo. So I think if you don't have Liam Jones, he's probably the obvious one. Yeah. And then frees up $100,000 to spend somewhere. But Will Day's probably next on the list, I guess. I mean, what do we think about Will Day? Dan, are you a fan of him? As it seems like he's going to play more midfield this year at the Hawks, but we sort of have never really seen him do that before. But is he capable of averaging 90 or 100 for us?
I think he showed in the practice games that he actually could, because he did put up 2 scores around the 90 mark, spending time in the midfield as an inside midfield. You wouldn't have thought that when he was drafted a few years ago as a very slight kid, but he does have a good burst of speed, uses the ball well. He's a point of difference to the likes of James Worpel and Jai Newcomb and those sort of same midfielders. So I think that they will continue to persist with that. And I mean, he can be used off half back, on the wing, and as I said, he's a great ball user. So I think and obviously had an injury interrupted year last year, which is why he is priced as he is. So I think he is a decent alternative. For me, it was pretty easy. I couldn't fit Liam Jones into my initial team, so I just went down with $100,000, and then I'm going to probably spend up in a couple of other areas. I think I've gone Mateus Filippo in, so another SA boy, another of the Phantom's favourites of I've gone Davey to Filippo, so that's what I'm using the cash for, and also Sean Darcy back to Jared Witt. So I like his early draw. He's the only guy there, and he could have 170 hitouts in round 1 against the Swans.
Against your man, Peter Adams.
Yeah, I mean, I had floated him in the office to a lot of laughter, but yeah, I don't know. I think Hickey's only 2 to 3 weeks out, so it would be a bit too much of a risk, I reckon.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But so the other options with Yo, apart from just a sort of a side swap, I guess, is to try and get him up to another defensive premium. So Phantom, that's kind of what you've done. Although Young's, not going all the way to the top, but you still need to find sort of 170,000 or something to get from Yo to Young. So how have you pulled that off?
Gone down from Clary to Bont, which I'm pretty happy with. I'm not, concerned about all the talk about what the D's are trying to do with the midfield and change up a bit, but at least I don't think about it now as such. I'm happy with what we know we could go off at any time consistently, and is this the year with no Josh Dunkley and what they've done as a side over the past couple of years and where they've fallen. So I'm happy with that. I had to ditch Liam Jones completely and play. I'm going to play Darcy Wilmot, Campbell Chester, Lockie Cowan, if he scores okay as emergency on field along with Charlie Constable in defence. So a little bit shorter there. Then I've had to trim a few rookies, which is the thing I'm not happy about as we speak right now. Can't afford Harry Sheasel. Can't even afford Luke Pedler in the forward line.
Oh, your man. Talking about him all pre-season. You're the only one who had him.
Matthew Nix talked him up as well over here in Adelaide last night as well. So it's something I want to change. I might have to give in somewhere else. Sam Flanders down to a Cam McKenzie or someone like that is probably the easiest way to make a bit extra money and shore up my bench and my F6. But wait and see what team throws up, and then I can adjust accordingly there.
I think that sort of decision on Yo, I'm not sure exactly what your defense looked like before this, but I've seen some teams that had, maybe just one expensive defender and then Yo as their second most expensive. So if you're in that bracket, you probably do want to try and get up and get another good scorer in there. It'd be a lot of rookies to be just have one primo in defence and then rely on all rookies from there, even if one of them is Liam Jones. We don't think he's going to score 100 every week. So, obviously if you can get up to a Jordan Dawson or a Tom Stewart type, that's great, but might be a little bit easier to get Hayden Young or Jordan Ridley or Dacos are all in that sort of 500K bracket. I was looking at Dacos. I was up very late last night looking at a lot of players and a lot of different options. And I was going through Dacos's draw and thinking, man, are we writing this guy off? Because 3 weeks ago, he was in about 50% of teams. And now we all seem to have just wiped him completely on the back of one preseason performance where he got a really heavy tag, still scored 70 or so, which wasn't a complete disaster, but, you obviously wouldn't want that too often. But, I mean, he's not going to get tagged like that every single week. And, the Pies can throw him around, chuck him in the midfield. But what are your thoughts on Dacos, Dan?
I Phantom knows my thoughts on Dacos. But no, I think you're definitely right. I think you're definitely right, though. Like, even Jack Steele, one, poor practice game and look, he's out of like 10, 15% of teams. It doesn't really, it isn't really fair, I don't think. But at the same time, I'm probably, with how weak the rest of my defense is, I probably have to go with two big boys there, which, it's probably two of Sicily, Doherty, Sinclair, Tom Stewart and Dawson, I think, especially if you are going a little bit weaker throughout. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, Dacos, obviously, it'll be interesting to see how much midfield time he does get and whether the tags do come. They didn't come at all last year, and he was just, winning so much footy back there. And they seem to have a bit of a stronger side this year, the Pies. Obviously, Jordan Ngoe, if he's up and going, will they look to tag a player like him instead? So, yeah, I think that Dacos is definitely still an option, especially if you're looking for a guy, a replacement for Yo. He's only 170K more.
Yeah, so that was certainly someone I looked at. But in the end, what I've done at this stage, and certainly can't promise it's not going to change again, but is go down from Yo to another rookie. So now I've got Jones as my third defender, and then you sort of got the three rookies across the bottom there. And when one of them's Ruben Jinby, and then you've got Connor McKenna and Constable, that doesn't look too bad. And so that gives me money to basically replace Fife somewhere else on the field. So you've got midfield, mid prices, so I could turn a bench rookie into a Warple or a Will Setterfield or Finn Callahan potentially, or go to the forward line. And that's kind of where I've looked, just because I think the rookies are a bit shakier there. I don't really want to have to start any of them on field if I can avoid it. Even someone like a Philippou, I think it came out yesterday, how he pronounces it. That he's going to have some good games and some really hot patches, I think, in games, but then he'll have some quiet times as well, just the nature of the role and playing for a team that might battle a little bit, especially early with all those injuries. So, you mentioned him off the top, and I've got Nat Fyfe back in my team. Again, as you said, Dan, I had him in my first team. When the SuperCoach prices first came out, it was just, how is Nat Fyfe this cheap? Yeah. And he's a forward. So, he was one of my first picks. And since then, we've all sort of faded him and looked elsewhere. And obviously, the injury history is a worry, and the role seems like he's basically going to play as a full-time forward. So it's not exactly what we'd love, because we know when he's been such a fantastic scorer in the past, it's mostly in the midfield. But up forward, I think he can still go really well. Probably, maybe if he's going really well, average 90, 95, more likely in the 80s somewhere, but that's still enough to make quite a bit of money. And as you said, the Freo draw is what really sort of sealed the deal for me. And if I get it up in front of me here, they play in the first 5 rounds. And no, they don't, because that's last year. Let's have a quick look. 2023. They play the Saints first up. Obviously, Saints a bit battered and bruised at the moment.
Yeah.
Then they've got North, then West Coast, then the Crom over there, Phantoms boys, then Gold Coast, then the Bulldogs and Hawthorn. So there's enough opportunities there, I think, for Freo to get off to a bit of a flying start. Give Fyfe plenty of opportunities. I think the Phantom, when I was chatting with him about this, humming and ahhing about it, he made a good point that even if Fyfe only gets 12 disposals in the forward line, they'll all be contested. They'll probably be score, assist, or shots on goal himself. So
3 goals, 9.
Kick straight, which can be a little bit of an issue. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm hoping is if it all, planets all align, he has a really great start, puts on some money really quickly, and then around 6, we might get Max Gawn or Christian Petrarca or someone available as a forward, and we can, make the, shake Nat's hand and say thanks, and move on to someone else and, put a premium in that spot. So that's what I'm looking at the moment. And as with you, Dan, it sort of left me a little bit of cash left over. So I've upgraded one of my bench players in the forward line to Asava Radaglia, as we mentioned, give me a bit of ruck cover. But the one that I've left out, so I suppose Asava really is just a straight swap in for Toby McLean. So, not 100% sure about how Toby's going to go. There's got a question on him about whether you would pick him or Alwyn Davey. I mean, I'd probably still pick him over Davey. Obviously, he's spending a bit more money there. But Davey's, obviously only in his first year, very young, exciting, but wouldn't surprise me at all if he got a rest or got subbed at some point. So, that's kind definitely of where I'm sitting. As I said, you can see all our teams online. So, lots of different ways you can fix the Fyfe situation, but not the Fyfe, the Yo situation, but that's how I'm doing it at the moment. So we'll get into some other questions here too. What about Cam Mackenzie? Hawks just announced about an hour ago that he's definitely going to play on Sunday against Essendon, which I don't think is a huge shock. But where did you guys rate him in the rookie Bible?
I had him fairly high. I think he was in the sort of the buy slot. But yeah, I think he's in my team at M8 at the moment. I have him over Callahan, just a little bit cheaper, more likely to get some centre bounces, and he's a bigger, taller midfielder as well, 188. So it's not like he's going to be found out necessarily. He's probably going to get some more centre bounces than Josh Ward. I wouldn't be expecting 90s every week, but that's, I guess, the same with every rookie. Obviously, he performed really well in that second practice game, but I think he should be a fairly reliable on-field scorer with the amount of midfield minutes he's getting.
Phantom, are you a Cam Mackenzie fan? Are you confident enough to start him on the field?
Oh, I am. I just can't afford him in my team right now, but I agree with Dan on his role and scoring potential this year, 180K. I'd be paying if I had it. Again, you have to ask yourself the question, how many can you slot in? I want to keep Sam Flanders in there. Obviously, that's what I said before. Mackenzie could be the one I go down from if I need the extra cash. But the question is a must-have. It's any first-year rookie at 180K, you could argue isn't a must-have given some of the other options around. So high ownership now, up towards 50%. I think so that makes it a little bit hard if you do miss out. But again, I still wouldn't say must have.
Yeah, I agree.
Getting a couple of, I've heard this a little bit around the traps. Is anyone, would you consider just keeping sitting him on your bench? He might be back in round 2 or 3, or even if he comes in round 3, then has a couple of decent games. Could you trade him back in, or is he just dead to us now?
Well, the issue I think is another calf issue. One that he was battling in December, and one he had 3 different calf injuries last year as well. So if he came out and had hurt his shoulder at training or hurt his ankle or something, but if it's an ongoing issue and they sort of often regular occurrences, so I don't think I'll be going back there. You might hold 1 week if Lockie Cowan scores well tonight as your emergency. He comes up with a 90 or something and you take the score, you hold Yeo. But again, I think this is probably a bit of a blessing for all of us. Maybe it was too good to be true. Elliot Yeo at that price. So not for me, I wouldn't be holding.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm getting a couple of questions about this guy, which has come out of left field a little bit. I think he's scored absolutely massive in the practice match, about 150. But I don't think I'd be going Liam Baker. He's just probably too flexible, really, for his own good in KFC SuperCoach, in the sense that he can play that sweeping role across half back really well, but he can also get thrown forward or on the ball. So not a reliable enough scorer. I think he could really do your head in. But another favourite of the hipster, but not for me. What about my connection? Seems to be a bit dubious here, but hopefully we're still going.
What's Dan?
Oh, now Jan's dropped out. We've got a question here about a phantom favourite. Hunter Clark is another mid-price defensive option potentially, and also Liam Stocker at the Saints is just over the 200k mark. Would you consider either of them?
Yeah, I like Hunter Clark. Interesting to see what Liam Stocker does in terms of role, but we've spoken about Hunter Clark and what he can bring to the St Kilda midfield. That it needs something different in there. They lack a bit of speed. They're a bit one-paced, as we mentioned. We know Hunter Clark. I think we're talking about this maybe yesterday. Back in 2021, started with Hunter Clark, and he was the best midfielder on the ground against the Giants on a wet day. Over in Sydney in round 1, scored a KFC SuperCoach ton. Obviously been injured and rolled and everything in between since. But again, if he can stay on the park consistently and play in the midfield, he could be one that we could really be jumping on in round 3. I think there's probably enough uncertainty to not start and maybe jump on. But again, I asked the question in the lair, how could you be more sure maybe on Will Day than you can of Hunter Clark? Maybe the body, and Hunter Clark's played more in the midfield than Will Day has. Maybe Will Day's obviously got a bit of a better run in that midfield given what they've got and what the Saints have got. But again, I've got them pretty level. I think Hunter Clark and Will Day if I had to go down there.
Never again, Hunter Clark. I had him a couple of years ago, brought him in round 2 after a ton round 1. He was in this, looked like he was he was living up to his potential in this inside midfield role, and then was just sort of ended up being this flaky halfback sort of outside midfield role weeks later, and it just in SuperCoach no man's land really, and scoring 60, 70s, and was just a frustrating hold while I had other issues with my team. I'd have to see a very convincing case to pick Hunter Clark, I reckon.
Now, just if we don't get to everyone's questions, there is a live Q&A on heraldsun.com.au, Code Sports, and the advertiser as well, of course, which will keep going. I think the three of us pretty much just jumping in and out all day trying to answer as many questions as we can. So hit us up over there. This will be probably the quickest one we've ever had to deal with. From Daniel, is Will Ashcroft going to play, Dan?
I don't know. You never know until he's officially named. So we'll leave it for teams tonight.
I think we can safely pick Will Ashcroft. What about throw this one to you, Phantom? Another can we call him a phantom favourite? But mid-price option, Jason Horne-Francis.
Good question. I think
that is JFH.
Jason, yeah,
Francis Horn.
I think he definitely can. He can. Things could go pear-shaped if they start going bad for the power. But in terms of role and scoring power and talent, he can. He's one that could really surprise in KFC SuperCoach. I wouldn't be starting. I'd have a look at him first. I think you can, like you said before, trust Nat Fyfe to do the job at that price in KFC SuperCoach. I think you want to have a look at Horn Francis in the first couple of games when the heat is on. But I do think we could get to a point where Horn Francis hits his straps and takes over from Nat Fyfe in that price range.
Yep. We better get to something that you can sort of forget in round one with all the mad scramble just to get to the start line. We need to think about who to put the captaincy on. But quick one here. We can maybe go around the table for Ricardo's question about Jones, Crozier, and Stocker.
Daniel.
Yep, exactly. So Crozier
in that order, I think.
His scoring looks okay. I'm just
I agree.
Just worried whether he's in the Bulldogs' best team. And there's some reporters in the Herald Sun office who are pretty close to, get down to Whitten Oval a bit, and they're very iffy on him. They've got a lot of players who play a similar role, so I'd probably be a bit scared off from him. I think Jones a clear number one. Stocker maybe. I mean, I think he's got a decent job security there at the Saints, and just he'll probably be a bit more defensive back there when they've got Sinclair and Wanganeen Malira to sort of play the more attacking role. But yeah, I don't hate that one. So I'd probably go Jones, Stocker, and then Crozier just because of his iffy job security.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Definitely Jones clear number one. I wouldn't be touching the other two.
Yeah. All right. Dan, anything different to those rankings?
No, I mean, Stocker, I think the injury to Caulfield is interesting for Stocker. I mean, it means he's probably more likely to stay in that side and improves his job security. But, and I mean, Crozier, like, he has scored well in the past, particularly when he was at Freo. But I don't know. I mean, like, he may be at that price for a reason. But, and he did score well in that one practice game. But, yeah, Stocker probably the better job security, Crozier better scoring potential. But, yeah, I'd probably wouldn't be touching either.
Yeah, fair. Now we're going to have a new segment every episode this year called Friday Night Footy, sponsored, of course, by our good friends at KFC. So get a bucket and get in front of the telly on Friday night. And, of course, early in the season, I think we can sort of just broaden that slightly to include the Thursday games as well. And that's where we look when we're starting to think about who to put the captaincy on, and certainly maybe a vice captaincy early in the round. And then that gives us some options if we want to try and loophole to get a better score or take that one. So is there anyone on the Friday night or the Thursday night who stands out? I must admit, I'm considering Sam Doherty as a VC tonight. He had two big scores against Richmond last year. Tigers don't really put too much time into opposition sort of halfbacks who can tend to rack it up. So they have named Ryan Mansell, who I can only assume is there to sort of play as a bit of a defensive forward, kind of just annoy the hell out of somebody. That's maybe a slight concern. But anyone else from the Richmond, Carlton, or the Geelong, Collingwood games take your interest? Phantom, we'll go to you first.
Every night is Friday night in the lair. Yes. Every day of the weekend we have some chicken wet, especially when the footy's on. I like Sam Doherty too, and we're discussing on the lair just before. It's also, you get excited on the first night. You want to have something more in the game too. So I don't mind an early VC, and I like Sam Doherty. We know how big he can go, and that's what you want in your VC combination. It's hard, obviously, if you do have Tom Stewart, I guess, potentially against the Pies. Patrick Cripps, if you may be going real unique, we know what he can do on the MCG. Not a lot of love for him in KFC SuperCoach circles, obviously this pre-season. But I think Sam Doherty is the one, someone I'm really weighing up to.
What about Timmy Taranto, Dan?
Yeah, I don't know. I think in our office, David King was speaking a couple of days ago, and he was saying that he could be a top 5 player in the comp, which, sort of caught my attention. But, yeah, I'm not sure about a VC. I mean, to Phantom's point about, like, wanting something in the first game, I I've been guilty of that in the past. I think I fielded Jeff Garlett, seeing he was named on a wing. Not Jeff Garlett, sorry. Who was the Garlett? Carlton, like the
Jared.
back in the day. Jared Garlett, yeah, and he scored about 20. So that was a painful watch. So I reckon I might stay out of the first game, but just on some other options. I mean, not half the reason why I'm picking Wits, but I reckon part of the reason why is his early draw. And I mean, I think I want to sort of dip my toe in with Wits, whether it's a VC or a C option. But I also do like Clayton Oliver as well. Generally does score quite well against the Bulldogs. Seems to be an absolute scoring fest whenever those two teams meet. But yeah, he has a good record there. So I might VC and then even just see how he's going at quarter time. Then might chuck the C on Wits against old mate Laddams.
Yeah, I think the Saturday night there's plenty of options there. Bulldogs, the Bonds and McRae and Petrarca and Oliver, they always tend to go big in these games. It's a bit of a shootout. I don't think either of them really tag at all. But the obvious fallback, certainly if you've got him, I think is Rory Laird on Sunday, given he's been so consistent. But Phantom, should we be worried about some noises from Adam Kingsley? He was asked, will you tag him? Will you put some defensive attention on Rory Laird? And he said he would. But is that just sort of trying to scare us?
Yeah, I don't think, given no Taranto, no Hopper, and Perryman's place in that side, I can't see them sacrificing someone like him just to stop Roy Laird. Sure, he might be more accountable, given what Kingsley seemingly wants the other midfielders to do and the way they want to move the ball. But I think Laird will be fine. Even if he gets some extra attention, he'll probably lay 15 tackles anyway. So, yeah, he'll probably be my C potentially if I don't go Doherty tonight. Probably maybe Bont into Laird on the Sunday. I'm not too concerned.
Yeah, I don't mind that. The other one that I know Tim Mitchell has been toying with, I can't remember if he made the latest edition or how many editions of his team he's done so far. I think
17.
We could do a rolling live show just of all Tim's team changes, but certainly at one point he's been looking closely at Andy Brayshaw in the midfield, and his record against St Kilda last year, he had 40 disposals in one game and I think about 38 in the other one. So they play in the final game of the round if you were prepared to hang around till then as a possible captain option. But I think we can just about wrap it up there. Obviously, just absolutely enormous week, month. It's been incredible pre-season of KFC SuperCoach, and then to get to this point and have everything basically thrown out the window, and we have to scramble and find something different. Well, yeah, exactly. With 24 hours to go, has been quite remarkable, really. But I mean, just thank you everybody for watching today, and everyone who's been part of it, because it's just been fantastic, and all the feedback and the comments and the questions is we love it all, and there's plenty of content. You could spend from here till the lockout, absolutely, you wouldn't have any trouble just filling that, reading all the great articles and the rookie bible and everyone's teams and Tim's 11 must-haves and everything. So and of course, as I said, the live chat's still going, so if you need to keep talking to us, jump straight over into there. But thank you, Phantom. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, exactly. Good luck tonight. And remember, obviously, everyone, it's a rolling lockout. So you only have to have your Carlton and Richmond players locked in tonight, as stressful as it is. We'll see all the other teams at about 6:30, and then we have that window of about 45 minutes before the game starts. So you don't have to get everything right in that time. If you just get, Sam Doherty in place and Taranto and Hopper and maybe one or two others, probably Cowan, probably that's a big call whether you want to play him or not, or any of the other rookies. But everything else, we can just take a little bit of a breath and look at it again tomorrow. So we'll be around, I'm sure, to offer more advice then as well. But any final word, Phantom, before we sign out?
No, that's it. Enjoy the footy. Like you mentioned, just assess what you need to tonight. Take tomorrow to reassess, but enjoy the footy, and we'll speak to everyone on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. Go Tigers, Dan.
Go Tigers.